Here we go. And we're back. This is Hook and Ladder. This is, I don't know what you'd call this. This is the
bowl week. I think it's bowl week 4. That's according to our poll, or our betting pool, office football pool with Seagraves. It's bowl week 4.
Okay. Well, let's get started. First, this is quarterfinal Fiesta Bowl. The Vibro Fiesta Bowl. Penn State knocked off Boise State 31-14.
New Year's Eve. Nice New Year's Eve playoff game. Really cool. I like it when they have the playoff games on New Year's Eve. They've had that for a couple of years. Good game. Penn State, obviously the better team. I thought Boise State could have done a little bit more. There was a lot of self-inflicted wounds, penalties, stuff like that. At the end of the game, it was a little ugly. Maddox was throwing interceptions, and they really...
They looked flat. They looked flat more than
They
anything.
did, and they weren't really in it at that time. So he was just throwing it up. But he threw for over 300 on him, and most of it wasn't garbage time. Genty still went for over 100. He wasn't his usual self. And everyone's like, oh, this is what happens when he's playing a good team. It was like, well, yeah, but he still got over 100.
Yeah.
You know, like he did 30 carries. Doesn't matter. He went for over 100. He made some plays. There was a 3rd and long. He busted like a 20-yard run. He was a factor because they were stopping him. They were loading up to stop him. Boise State really couldn't do much in the passing game other than the tight ends and wideouts really weren't a factor. Their best wideout didn't catch a pass till the 3rd quarter, I don't think. But I really felt this game could have been a lot closer. Boise State was ready to play. They just had a lot of untimely miscues.
Seems like between the 20s, Boise State was able to move the ball. They get into the red zone, just fumbles, interceptions. Just did not really go their way.
Yeah, and Penn State played well. Drew Aller played well. The tight end, I forgot his name, 44, was great, absolutely phenomenal. Running game was okay. It had the late drive, the late touchdown. But I felt Boise State, they were getting run on, but they were stopping it when they needed to. But you got to give credit to Penn State. It was one of those oh God, I forgot the podcast where they talked about it being like a pressure cooker situation. It's going really, really, really slow, and before you know it, it's a blowout. And that's kind of how this game went. I thought Penn State played well. Their top defensive end went down with an injury, and I don't think he's going to play this week.
Well, we'll see.
I still don't think they're a great team. That's the thing about these bowl games. There are teams that didn't play in the playoffs. I thought didn't look great in the bowl games, but during the regular season, when they were on their game, they looked like playoff contender. And not to say Penn State didn't look like that. I just think that they have more, especially on the terms, you get rid of SMU, you get rid of Indiana, and you get rid of Boise State. Of all those teams, I felt Georgia and Penn State were the weakest of them all. But they're advancing, so good on them.
Moving right along to Ohio State, Oregon. Ohio State knocked off Oregon 41-21. Ohio State looking really good. Right
They
now.
are. They're looking like the team to beat when they lost to Michigan. Maybe that's what they needed. Nick Saban's calling Ohio State fans, delusional and all these other names because of the Michigan thing. And I kind of agree with him. Forget about the Michigan game. You're on the cusp of winning a title. That's all that matters. Not finishing 6-6, but beating Michigan. And I think some Ohio State fans feel that that's the goal of the season. It's not. It's ridiculous. But they weren't looking good. They had a couple of games during the season where they didn't look good. Well, something happened with that Michigan loss in those few weeks of practice because they look amazing. Destroyed Oregon. Destroyed isn't even a word to accurately describe the ass beating Ohio State put on them. Will Howard looked great. Jeremiah Smith looked great. Trayvon Henderson looked great. The defense looked great. Oregon couldn't do anything. All those weapons. Mike Farrell wanted to tweet and say that Arizona State and Oregon were the 2 top teams. Oregon will probably win it. When he tweeted that before the playoffs even started, I thought it was freaking stupid. But for all of Oregon's weapons, they couldn't do anything against Ohio State's defense. I mean, it was a ass beating from beginning to end. Basically, the game was over, after the first quarter.
I mean, Ohio State's peaking at the right time.
They are.
If you're going to peak during the playoffs. Well,
everyone talks about Jeremiah Smith. Guy's phenomenal, best wide receiver in the country. But I got some other dudes on the field as well that are going to kill you.
Let's move right along to the Texas-Arizona State game. You could get a ticket for $35, and this turned out to be the best game of the bowl season so far.
It did. I mean, and this was right here in Atlanta, 1 p.m. kickoff. Probably why it was so cheap. You got two fan bases. Texas coming back to Atlanta for like the second time in 2.5 weeks.
And they were kind of expecting to knock off Arizona State.
Yes, Arizona State, coming a long way. That was the early game that came on before Oregon, Ohio State. They went up what? They were up 16 points, and Scadaboo decided to take the game into his own hands, throwing the football, running it, catching it. They came back. I felt they should have won. The targeting was BS. That should have been targeting. Let them get the 15 yards and the first down. Arizona State maybe make a play or two to get into field goal range, win the game with a field goal in regulation. Story of the game. Well, I guess I shouldn't say story of the game, but the play of the game. 4th and 13. Ewers is going through his cadence to snap the football. 4th and 13, they're down. First down or touchdown, or else the game's over. And you see them, two guys, a safety and a linebacker for Arizona State, getting right up the line of scrimmage. I thought, no, don't blitz with that many guys. Don't do it. Yeah, they had the numbers, but you're leaving yourself open on the back end. As soon as you snaps it, you see those guys don't go anywhere. They get picked up beautifully by the offensive line, who's having a lot of trouble the last few weeks pass protecting and run blocking. One of the better run teams in the country was Texas. They can't run the football the last couple weeks of the not the season, but the SEC championship game and this one can't run the football at all. They throw the pass. Touchdown to, I think, it was Golden. And 4th and 13 touchdown. And they go for 2 and end up getting it. That was the ball game. I thought that was a terrible defensive play call. You maybe blitz one guy, but keep the other guys back. They need 13 yards for a first down. In my opinion, they could have stopped it and won the game right there. They screwed themselves, so they really have only self to blame. Right. Credit to Texas. They had an opportunity. They took advantage and won the game.
That's right. Moving right along to the game that was pushed back due to a terrorist act, New Year's Day at 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank God that there were more people out there. But
this one was one you texted me and said they're going to postpone it. I had on my phone the notifications, and the first notification said they were meeting, possibly going on at the regular time.
Yeah.
And then there was another notification saying it was delayed, and I didn't read that one.
No.
So, it was delayed until, Thursday at 4. And
I was kind of hoping they'd move it to at least 7 o'clock, or, that way more people could see the game.
Yeah. I mean, I get what both teams wanted it earlier in the day so they could get some rest and get ready, because the game was this Thursday. You get a week.
Right.
I rewatched this game again. I thought Georgia's defense played well enough to win this game for them. They let up the touchdown at the end of the half. Was not really their fault. It was a fumble inside your own 20. They definitely had a bend it, don't break. Riley Leonard threw for 90 yards, and he ran for 80. I would say 60 of those 80 yards came on the last drive or two of the game when it was pretty much done. And I think at that time, you could see the way some of Georgia's defenders were going after him. It was like, they were just like, I don't want to get hurt kind of deal.
Yeah.
But I thought their defense played well enough. The offense was terrible, but it moved. There were plays to be had. They drive the football all the way down the field. ETN fumbles. They get the ball again, drive all the way down the field. They've got that stupid, I don't want to call it stupid because it's a legit penalty. I've never seen it called before. I've seen a warning, but not called before. The referee runs into the kid on the sideline, 15-yarder, so instead of being at 1st and goal at the 10, they're 1st and 10, like at the 25.
This guy's toe was on the line.
Yeah, and he ran into him. You can look at the replay. The referee clearly got hurt.
He was weaving back and forth. It should not have been a penalty. It should have been a warning.
I mean, it's a playoff game for crying out loud.
It is a critical situation, and the guy basically just killed the momentum of that drop.
Yep. But, Georgia didn't lose because of that. Things obviously could have changed had they scored a touchdown there. But I do feel that Georgia's defense played well enough to win. Yeah. Notre Dame really wasn't doing a ton of offense till basically midway through the 4th quarter. Opening play of the second half, they ran a kickoff for a touchdown. So right there, you're down You're
That
down,
was
what,
a killer.
20-3.
Yeah, that was a dagger.
So basically, Georgia's defense led up one touchdown that was on a ridiculously short field.
Yeah.
Like, you gave them the football in the red zone, deep in the red zone. Yeah. So, I mean, Georgia's defense played well enough to win. I thought the offense, Gunner threw for 234, which wasn't that bad.
Receiving core didn't help them much.
They didn't run the ball very well, but they ran it better than I thought they would. Mm-hmm. They had some plays. They just could. It was just kind of like Boise State. There was penalties. Mm-hmm. There were critical errors, 2 fumbles, and some miscues. And, credit to Notre Dame. They made that happen. This wasn't just Georgia saying, we're the best team, but we're making errors. No, Notre Dame made them make errors. Mm-hmm. Some people are still saying Kirby got out-coached. I don't agree with that. So. They had the fake punt. That was really the only, cool coaching moment there, really. It was miscues by Georgia. Notre Dame had some miscues, too. Notre Dame kept roughing the punter or running into the punter. Mm-hmm. But I thought it should have been a little bit better game than it was. Yeah. But like I said, give credit to Notre Dame. They came to play, and they got the win.
And this wasn't the best Georgia team in a while.
No. This was easily, I would kind of put it on par with the 2020 team, the COVID year team. So the worst team in the last 4 years.
Yeah. And still won the SEC.
Yeah. Not a bad football team, just inconsistent on offense.
Yeah. And they kicked up the Branch brothers in the portal just a few hours ago. So
let's go back up because this one just happened the other day.
So I guess we'll start with Alabama-Michigan game. Michigan knocked off Alabama 19-13. Jalen Milroe's gone. He's going to the NFL.
The game that got anti-SEC people all jumping up and down for joy, this one and then the next one. And I'll never say these games are meaningless. I'll never say teams don't want to be there, even though that may be true. Yeah. I think for the most part, these guys want to play. Yeah. You're on Alabama. Even if Ohio State, let's look at Ohio State, for example. Even if Ohio State wins this national championship, there's going to be guys on that roster, starting players, who probably aren't going to play in the NFL. There are guys in Alabama's roster that probably aren't going to play in the NFL. Mm-hmm. They want one last game. So I don't ever buy into that, well, no, they don't want to be there. These guys, it's the last time some of these dudes are ever going to put on the Alabama uniform. Right. It means something to them. They played like dog shit. Not only did Jalen Milroe look like Bernie Kosar, okay, for the Cleveland Browns, interceptions, bad interceptions, fumbles, then it rained. And only Alabama had trouble with the footing. They were slipping. Milroe slipped and fell down a couple times. The wide receivers, they were throwing wide receiver screens. They were slipping. Running backs were slipping. Defensive backs slipping. Michigan didn't have that problem. Alabama, you could kind of tell they were the clear better team. I mean, they kept giving the football to Michigan inside the red zone. Yeah. And they were stopping them. Kick field goals. But I got to give credit to Michigan. Their defense played well enough to limit Alabama from doing anything until even late in the game. Alabama just couldn't get it done. But as you see the stats, Milroe threw for 192 and he was the passing leader of the day. Yeah. Michigan can't throw the football. So they were kind of stacking the box, making them run, and making hay. The Alabama defense was. Their offense was crap. And then I saw something online where Milroe, when it's a passing down, has his feet staggered. Yeah. And then when it's running down, he's like, his feet are side by side. So maybe he has no idea what he's doing as the quarterback position. I don't know. I don't care. All the anti-SEC people are laughing. Look, SEC fan here. I'm laughing with you, dude. I hate Alabama. I don't want any SEC team to win. Why do you want your competition to win, especially when you start going after these top guys and recruiting head-to-head? Mm-hmm. I want to look and say, dude, they lost to the worst Michigan team in like 8 years. And, negative recruit. So, yeah, I'm glad they lost. But, yeah, they started the whole, Alabama should have been there, hypotheticals and all that crap. People are having so much fun online. Clearly, they don't know anything about football, but they're just having a good time online right now.
Illinois has knocked off South Carolina 21-17. Kind of interesting game.
It was. This was a different game. I mean, everyone's going to kind of look and say another SEC Big Ten game where the Big Ten wins. I kind of thought this was a little bit more evenly matched than the Alabama-Michigan game was. But I thought Illinois had more to play for because I kind of saw South Carolina, they're bringing most of their guys because they're young. Rocket Sanders didn't play. One of the superstar defensive ends didn't play. But they really couldn't get the pressure on Illinois' QB that I thought they were going to be able to get. They made some plays. Lenore Stellar, you kind of live and die by him. He was a freshman, so he's going to make these great plays. He's going to make some boneheaded mistake. Illinois never made these mistakes. They just workmanlike. They got down, didn't matter. They workmanlike. They came back in, got the lead. The whole thing with Brett Bielema and the substitution thing, I thought that was weird. Like, I couldn't figure out why when they were meeting on South Carolina was timeout meeting on the sideline with an injury, he walks over doing like the substitution sign, and then Beamer gets all bent out of shape, and it's like
maybe there was something else going on.
There might have been, but I thought Shane Beamer was clearly out of his comfort zone. Bielema was in the guy's head. I mean, the way he blew up, it's like, dude, have some composure, be a professional. You're in a bowl game and you're down, dude. Like, why he was acting like a baby. And I kind of like Shane Beamer. I think he's a decent coach, but he does happen to. Usually not like this, but you'll see him in like post-game press conferences or like the Monday afternoon pressers. And sometimes he just says things and you look at him and you're like, God, this guy is such a little bitch. And he acted like a bitch and their team got beat like a bitch.
Wow.
So kudos to Illinois. I know Jerry's happy. But this game to me, like I said, it was a game I thought was going to be a little bit more evenly matched.
Yeah. Moving right along, Louisville knocked off Washington in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl in El Paso. 35-34.
I watched this game. I broke my remote. I bet on Louisville. And they had this game sewn up. And they let them score a touchdown on a 4th down. And then they went for 2. And Washington wins. I don't give a shit. I already lost the bet.
Yeah.
Then Washington misses it and Louisville gets it. I was kind of wanting Louisville to lose at the point. You give up the touchdown. I wanted you to lose. I got mad. I lost my money on this game.
And you broke a remote.
Mm-hmm.
And you broke a remote.
I did. I fixed it.
Okay.
I won it back on LSU, though.
No. LSU knocked off Baylor 44-31. I watched some of this. This is a pretty good game. I was in the hotel up in Alpharetta drinking Busch Lights and getting ready to go out.
Nice. Good game. I watched a good bit of this as well. It looked like a runaway from the beginning, but give credit to Baylor. They came back. Battling back. Yeah. Whit Weeks went down. That looks like a broken leg or maybe like some kind of ACL injury, lower extremity injury. He was carted off the field. I don't like seeing that because when that shit happens, you're going to see more kids bail on these kind of bowls. I don't like that. It's been going on for years. Nothing new. If you're not in the playoffs, these kids are going to bail. These kids are going to opt out. This kid's good. Yeah. Weeks is a damn good linebacker, and he went down on the goal line, made a stop. He's laying there. He was on the bottom of the pile. Everybody kind of got up, and he's just kind of laying there like, oh, my leg's done. So I felt bad.
Yeah. Let's see. Ole Miss knocked off Duke 52-20.
Only one of the SEC teams that was kind of being talked about as maybe getting in. There was a lot of people that thought Ole Miss and South Carolina were playing the best at that time when Ole Miss was on due to the fact, I mean, people, anti-SEC people, again, they're jumping up and down but not actually watching any football. If you watched Ole Miss, you could see that defensive line they had. Okay, you see what they did to certain teams. The offense, we all know about the offense. I mean, Jackson threw for 404 in this game. They're dangerous, but Lane Kiffin's their coach. He's going to shit the bed at some point. You just don't know when it is. So they lost to Florida, got knocked out of the playoffs, and they took it out on Duke. The only team that looked like we thought they were going to look like was Ole Miss. They played really well. Jackson Dart's going to the NFL. A bunch of guys have declared and accepted Senior Bowl invites. So they're reloading for next year. But give credit to Ole Miss. They had a good game. I watched that. Didn't watch any of the Texas game versus North Texas State. But I watched that Minnesota Virginia Tech game. That was good. Minnesota looked good. Running back looks good. They got this wideout. This one dude who had this like, I forgot his name. He had big like bushy hair coming out the helmet.
Green.
I don't think that was him. But he scored 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So good for him. Good game for Minnesota. Love the Duke's Mayo Bowl. One of my favorite bowls. I like watching the Mayo bath. Yeah. So, and PJ Fleck's a good character, so I enjoyed watching that.
Cool. I guess
Big Ten looked good.
Yeah.
Everyone's, again, been saying it before, I still think the SEC is the best conference in the country. But there are people that have a point. When you start being able to legally pay for these kids, some of these schools can come into the South. That's why the SEC was the best. The kids in the South are just better. So they can come into the South and get the kids, bring them to Michigan Ohio State, Penn State. What now? You watch that Penn State game. There's 2 kids on the team that were at Georgia the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They got a couple of kids from LSU and a kid from Alabama and a bunch of other kids from like Florida, like the state of Florida, state of Texas. They get the Southern kids. They can do that now. So I do think there's more parity in the sport. We've been talking about it all season.
Which is a good thing.
It's a good thing. But the Big Ten, everyone was like, they're the second best conference in the country, and I agree. This year, I think they're the best.
Yeah.
Overall, I think Ohio State's elite.
Yeah.
Don't think Penn State's elite. I think they're very, very good. I think Notre Dame is very, very good for that matter as well, even though they're not in the Big Ten. I think Texas is on the borderline. They can be elite, but they're kind of more very, very good. I think that you still have the cream of the crop. There's less teams in the Big Ten as the cream of the crop. I'm not going to include Indiana. They played nobody. Penn State and Ohio State are the best, but there's a clear...
And their quarterback played with ACL all season long.
He did, but Ohio State is clearly way, way above Penn State.
Yeah,
I think the SEC, some of the top teams are a little bit closer together.
Yeah.
But the Big Ten is easily the best conference in the country this year.
Yeah.
Top to bottom.
Fun fact, none of the teams that got buys ended up advancing in the playoffs. So
Correct. All 5 conference champions lost.
got knocked out.
Yeah,
I wonder what that's going to play 2 or 3 years down the road. Is this going to be a common thing to all of a sudden the teams that got the bye are getting knocked off first?
I think they're going to rearrange it. I mean, the Georgia-Notre Dame game, Georgia was a 1-point favorite. It was basically a coin toss game.
Yeah.
Really, the only games, in my opinion, that were second round that were questionable was the Texas-Arizona State, and then Penn State, Boise State.
Yeah.
So they're going to look at those games like that and be like, okay, those 2 teams didn't deserve a bye even though they won their conference. So I think they're going to relook at automatic conference championships, champions getting byes, and maybe make them play first round. Because I feel... Ohio State lost 2 games. Penn State lost 1. Maybe give Penn State the bye. Georgia. Because if you look at all the teams, Texas had 2 losses, but they didn't win the conference. Even though Penn State didn't win the conference, they only had 1 loss. Maybe do it like that. I think you're going to see a different kind of seeding. But I think that all 4 teams that had the bye losing was just kind of like, a coincidence in my opinion.
Possibly, but maybe
2 of the 4 I thought were weaker of the teams coming in.
And maybe next year 3 of the 4 teams get advanced.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But if it becomes a common thing where the people who are getting buys are getting knocked off, I mean, they had a month off, and the team that played a week and a half ago comes rolling in. Got a little game time under them, got a little momentum built up. Maybe having the buys not necessarily the best thing. Moving right along, next week's matchups. Thursday night, we got Notre Dame and Penn State.
I like having these games on the week, on like a Thursday and Friday. I like that. The game on Monday is ridiculous. But I like having these games on Thursday and Friday, something a little different than Saturday. 7:30 is great, kind of winding down. My daughter's sitting over there, so she'll be getting ready for bed so I can watch the game. I don't know how to go in this one. This one, to me, is like the Notre Dame-Georgia game. It's a coin flip game. 2 good defenses, 2 offenses that have the capability of making hay, but are they going to be able to do it against each other's defense? I don't know. I don't think Penn State's offense is going to be able to... I don't think Notre Dame's offense is going to be able to go that well against Penn State. Yeah. Notre Dame runs the football. They could not do it against Georgia. If that happens against Penn State, I think Notre Dame's in trouble because I think Penn State's offense is a little bit more, not better than Georgia's, but they're more consistent. I think the tight end, them being able to get the tight end involved, number 44, is really going to hurt Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame was able to cover Georgia's tight ends. Georgia's wide receivers were open a good bit of the game. Offensive line couldn't block. So the poor Georgia quarterback was under duress. But there were guys open. I think if Penn State's offensive line can block, they'll be all right. I think they're going to have a better time easier time offensively than Notre Dame will. So I'm going with Penn State. They've got one of the easier roads. They got SMU, Boise State, and now Notre Dame. I thought it would have been a much tougher task for them to play Georgia.
Yeah.
I think Georgia's defense is better than both of these defenses.
I agree.
But Georgia's offense is shit. So
Yeah. It is. It's funny to me where these two coaches were earlier in the season and where they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they basically got a bunch of good behind them now, and it would be to win, but one of them's got to lose.
Yeah.
So I got to think Notre Dame's going to pull this out.
Notre Dame should be able to get after the passer. Boise State was able to get after Drew Aller a good bit. I thought if Georgia had won, they would be able to get after Aller a lot with that pass rush. There's multiple guys. I think Notre Dame can do it with the two defensive ends. Those are the two best pass rushers on Notre Dame's team, in my opinion. Yeah. Losing Riley, number 99, is big. Didn't hurt him against Georgia because Georgia can't run the football for shit. Yeah. It should affect them in this game because Penn State can run the ball. It's a coin flip game. You're going Notre Dame?
I'm going Notre Dame.
I'm going Penn State.
Okay. Moving right along.
Bet 6-pack of beer.
Sounds good.
Cheap-ass beer.
Cheap-ass beer.
Old Milwaukee.
Ooh, yes. Friday night, we got Ohio State and Texas playing in the Cotton Bowl. You get a ticket this game, $303. Ohio State's favored by 6, and that seems about right to me.
I don't think it's enough.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State's offense should be able to. I mean, look, Georgia's offense moved the football pretty good on these guys a couple times. So did Arizona State. Texas is right there, neck and neck. All right, if you look at the blue chip ratio, they're neck and neck with Ohio State.
Do you think you see Arch Manning at some point?
He's got to play because Ohio State's the better team or the hotter team right now. I think they might be the better team.
Yeah.
One of the most talented teams in the country. I'm also going to say Texas is right there as well. A lot of people picked Texas to win the national championship at the start of the playoffs before everybody saw how Ohio State played.
I think the winner of this game...
The winner of this game is winning the whole thing. Yeah. I'm going to go with Ohio State, but I can see a way Texas wins this game. But they got to play a lot better.
Yeah.
A lot better. Offensive line's garbage. I know they've been banged up. They can't run the football. If you can't run the football against Ohio State, you might as well just go to the locker room because it's over.
Yeah. Well, talent-wise, they should be head-to-head.
Yeah, but I mean, I watched what they've done the last, handful of games, and I'm just,
Okay, no, okay.
Clemson was able to make hay on him with the QB. Howard's not a runner like Klubnik is going to be, but he doesn't need to be. Right. They've got ridiculously good weapons, and I just don't see Texas being able to stop them. The key is, can Texas's offense, which is really freaking good, Sark calls some really cool plays, those tight end plays, and the kick out, the guard comes, pulling out one way, they go the opposite direction. Phenomenal play calls. They gotta be offensively flawless. Quinn Ewers has to have the game of his life, and I think they really need to just bring in Arch a bunch, make him run, and then let him throw. They need Arch to win this game.
Right. Well, if Ohio State plays like they played the past two games,
nobody's beaten
them. But can you guarantee that Ohio State's going to play that way against Texas?
No, and that was kind of my thoughts on Ohio State when the playoffs started. We all know, and I'm not shitting on Ohio State fans. My buddy Chris Connolly, he's in our group. He'll tell you, I'm going to shout him out. I've shouted him out before on this channel. Yeah. He'll tell you the same thing. Ryan Day is soft. Don't know what got into them, the coaching staff or the team after Michigan. I don't know. But they're not playing soft now. Mm-hmm. They've got to win 4 games against good competition. I thought Tennessee was a good football team. Yeah. Oregon's a good football team. Texas is a good football team. And then they're going to go against a tough team the next round in either Notre Dame or Penn State. They got to play 4 really good teams in a row. Mm-hmm. I have a hard time believing the Ohio State Gold can win 4 games in a row. But if they win, they will have beaten I think they will have beaten 7 of the playoff teams. I think that's how it is. At some point, I don't know, it was some cool little
tidbit
TikTok video I saw. I don't know, forget how it exactly went. But I was surprised because Ohio State usually doesn't do that great against really good ranked teams, historically. I don't know. I think Ohio State's going to win, but I can definitely see a way Texas makes it happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going with Ohio State, and I'll go with them to cover.
Yeah, I'm going with Ohio State.
Because I'm just not sold on Texas being solid both sides of the football, both sides of the line of scrimmage.
But you got to think, at some point in time, Texas is going to play to their capabilities.
Yes, they got to put it all together. Yeah.
Some point in time.
I think if they win, they could take out either of the other two teams playing their B game. Yes. They need their A+ game on Friday night.
Yeah, if Ohio State shows up, they showed up the past 2 weeks, they're going to beat Texas by 2 scores.
Yeah, if Ohio State's B game shows up on offense, they'll still probably win. It's the let's run the football way more than we're passing. I mean, they're good. They got 2 really good running backs.
Yeah.
Offensive line's banged up. It's still very, very good. Serviceable, if not good. But they need to throw the football. Because nobody can cover Jeremiah Smith. Nobody. Dude steps off the bus and he's open.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. We'll do it again next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about the winner of these 2 games before we get into our championship prediction.
Yeah. Maybe talk about the portal a little bit next week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which is coming to a close, or is already closed for people to jump in unless you played last week. I think tomorrow's the last day for teams. Last day for Georgia. It's 5 days after your season ends. So tomorrow's the last day for Georgia. 2 guys for Georgia jumped in today, but they got 2 guys. So you'll see dudes from all 4 of these teams when the season's over jumping in the portal. Yeah. And some people online want to, what's going on with Texas? Everybody knows it's going to happen out in the wide. It'd be a shock to people.
Yeah. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed this week's slate of games, and we'll talk about everything again next week.
Yep. See you guys.